Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blah, but I'm a very happy boy today. We have an article about layoffs. Woot woot! That's right. Don't ask me why, but layoffs is catnip to you people. Talking about how China is doing better than the United States, that brings in the viewers. Talking about layoffs, that also brings in the viewers. I have to say from the bottom of my heart, I have some pretty screwed up viewers out there. If you're watching this video, you might want to ask yourself about your particular life decisions. Anyways, I do think this is interesting, kind of with that whole China diatribe I've been going on about, where Intel is going to be laying off 15 to 20% of its, wait for it, factory workers. Because that's the timeline we are currently in. We have been told by numerous administrations that we have to make sure that China is not superior in the technology realm to the United States. And it seems like every time a president comes out and says that, one of our technology companies does a massive round of layoffs. Hey, Biden, please give us billions and billions and billions of dollars in order to maintain technological supremacy. And then Biden gives them billions of dollars. And then they lay off people. You have Trump coming in, all being Taco Man. And then Intel lays off some more people. And I don't understand how we're going to win this game. Do we actually understand the rules to this game? You know, have you ever sat there and you're playing a board game and like you read the rules and your spouse read the rules and you kind of sort of think you understand how the rules work, but then you get like an hour into playing the game and you're like, I don't think these rules don't actually make a lot of sense. I think maybe we don't fully understand the game that we're playing. And I really feel like that's the case with the United States right now. In this game called life. This big old game called life. I don't feel like we understand the rules. Because it's interesting, this whole deal of we're banning NVIDIA GPUs from being sold to China to suppress China's advancement. TSMC, or Taiwan overall, is blacklisting Huawei and SMIC. Talked about that yesterday. Trump administration is trying to use export control laws to keep anybody in the world from buying any Huawei AI processors, right? And this is all like punishment, whatever, right? But the issue that I keep coming up with is that we're not building things. We are not driving money into our high school vocational programs so that high schoolers can come out at 18 years old and go into a middle class job at a factory doing industrial something or other, right? We're not, even with businesses, as I've said, if I wanted to create a software development company, I know the route to go to do that. If there's a lot of other businesses that even if I don't know how to do it, I know who to ask to get help. If I wanted to build something here in the United States, if I decided to create artisanal timers in the United States, I literally, not only do I have no idea how to create a factory in the United States, I don't even have an idea of who I would go to for support in order to create a factory. So we are in an environment that day by day, property that used to be zoned for industrial is being turned into condos. Day by day, our students are literally being directed away from vocational programs, manufacturing, industry, that type of thing. Day by day, we're driving money and investment into creating the next dog dating app, but who the hell knows how to actually build a factory or anything like that. And in this environment, there's this idea, well, we can punish Chinaman to such a degree that we'll become superior again. If we don't manufacture it, and China doesn't manufacture it, nobody's going to manufacture it. But anyways, who am I? I'm just a geek in my basement screaming at the internet clouds. So this is real. This is real. Intel, this is coming from an Oregon newspaper because they got the drop on this first. It's being reported in many places at this point, though. Intel will lay off 15 to 20% of its factory workers, memo states. So this went out to its factory workers. That's the thing, too. Like we talk about the factory workers. You know, Intel's a big company. It's like 110,000 employees. So Intel's going to do layoffs. Hey, maybe they're laying off the HR people. Maybe they're laying off their version of Tadum. Maybe they're laying off, right? You could say, look, they got 110,000 people. You know, get rid of a lot of the crappy employees. Yeah, but they're getting rid of the factory workers. How are we supposed to produce silicon in this country if we don't have factory workers? I do not understand. Eli, you don't know. No, you are correct. I do not understand. Intel plans to lay off up to a fifth of its factory workers. Oh, Christ. Are we sure this isn't like a dream? Are you sure this isn't the Matrix? Maybe this is the Matrix. Maybe this is the Matrix. Maybe this is the Matrix. Maybe this isn't fucking reality. Is this reality? Oh, Lordy. Intel plans to lay off up to a fifth of its factory workers, an enormous cutback that will have a profound effect on one of the chip maker's core businesses. I'd imagine. Quote, these are difficult actions, but essential to meet our affordability challenges and current financial position of the company. It drives pain to every individual. Intel Manufacturing Vice President Naga, who the hell said whatever, wrote to employees Saturday. He said the company is targeting job reductions between 15 and 20%, with most of the cuts taking place in July. The Oregonian, Oregon Live, viewed a copy of the email whose authenticity was confirmed by 4 employees. Intel declined to comment on Saturday's memo, but reiterated that the company would, quote, treat people with care and respect as we complete this important work. We will treat you with care and respect as we kick your ass out the door. Quote, removing organizational complexity. And notice the words all these tech companies are using right now, right? We're streamlining efficiency, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the same old same. I mean, this is the same crap we were hearing 15 years ago. We just haven't heard it for about a decade. Anyways, quote, removing organizational complexity and empowering our engineers will enable us to better serve the needs of our customers and strengthen our execution, the company said. Quote, we are making these decisions based on careful consideration of what's needed to position our business for the future. Well, I guess if you're trying to figure out how to shove your business into one grave site, you do got to start trimming stuff off before you can shove it down in there. Anyways, Intel announced the pending layoffs in April and notified factory workers last week that the cuts would begin next month. It hadn't previously said just how deep the layoffs will go. The company had 109,000 employees at the end of 2024, but it's not clear how many of those worked in its factory division called Intel Foundry. So again, this is its factory division. These are people that actually create the silicon, create the chips that we're supposed to be competing with China. So here's the thing. China is literally building out massive new manufacturing districts. They have satellite photos of the new district where the Huawei chips are going to be produced, and it is a district. It is as in the Huawei factory is here, and then all the other factories that support it are around it, so that Huawei can just crap out a metric ton of these processors once they get up to speed. So we are supposed to be competing with China. While we're supposed to be competing with China, they're creating manufacturing districts for their AI processors, and our crown jewel of a technology company is laying off a fifth of its factory workers. I don't feel like we're winning. I don't feel like we're winning here. I could be wrong, But holy hell. Intel is planning major cuts in other parts of its business too, but employees say the company hasn't specified how many jobs it will eliminate in each business unit. Workers say they believe the impact will vary within departments. Overall, though, the layoffs will surely eliminate several thousand jobs and quite possibly more than 10,000. So last year, they got rid of 15,000 people. So now they're going to get rid of another, possibly up to 10,000. Next month's layoffs will take place at Intel factories around the world, but could have an especially big effect in Oregon. So this is an Oregon newspaper I'm reading from. The heart of the company's manufacturing operation, the chip maker employs 20,000 in the state, more than any other business. This is the other thing I talk about with macro forces affecting you as a technology professional, right? If Intel is the big company in your area, and it's been a big company for a long time, that may have been driving a crap ton of jobs in your area. Intel decides they're going to start dumping people by the tens of thousands. All of a sudden, it's going to be harder for you to get a job. Intel eliminated 15,000 jobs across the company in 2024, including 3,000 in Oregon. The company is responding to a protracted decline in sales and bleak near-term outlook driven by intense competition in PCs and data centers and Intel's failure to develop advanced chips for the booming market for artificial intelligence. So basically, all these people are getting laid off because the executives have failed miserably for years. And years, and years, and years, and years. They failed, so they originally ceded the mobile world, so smartphone world or whatever, to ARM. So basically, if you go back 15, 20 years, the idea with ARM processors is they were not very powerful, but they were very power efficient. Intel didn't really care for a while, so ARM was going into a lot of the smartphones, that type of thing. Intel decided that they were going to compete with ARM. They came out with something called the Atom processor and failed miserably. Failed so bad. Anyways, they came out with the Atom processor. They failed. They had a 5G unit. Again, there's silicon and engineering and all that kind of stuff. They were going to create 5G, and they failed. GPUs, they weren't doing so well for a while. I guess now they have good GPUs. Like, hey, if you're in the market for a kind of crappy, like low mid-range GPU, maybe you want to buy an Intel. Apparently, that seems to be the sales pitch for buying Intel GPUs. I hear from people. I'm like, well, you got Nvidia and you have AMD and Intel is crap. And people are like, no, Eli, Intel GPUs, they're not crap. Well, okay, fair enough. I'm sorry. What are you using Intel GPUs for? Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. Well, yeah, okay, well, whatever. So they just keep failing. If you've heard the last CEO, they have a new CEO now. The last CEO of Intel was basically saying how they are falling behind generations. They have this whole TikTok system with how the generations are supposed to go. So they're trying to speed up the TikTok system supposedly, but it just doesn't. It doesn't look good. And the funny part, the ironic part with all of this is that with our politicians, and especially our president, beating the drum that we have to beat China basically at all costs, it is curious just to simply see what an absolute disaster Intel is. Last year's cuts came through layoffs, buyouts, early retirement offers, and attrition. This time out, Intel has indicated it doesn't plan to offer any voluntary buyouts. Instead, it will choose which workers it doesn't want based on investment priorities and individual performance. Quote, these reductions will be based on a combination of portfolio changes, level and position elimination, skill assessment for remaining positions, and some hard decisions around our project investments. We are also taking into consideration factory operations impact. Last year, the Biden administration awarded Intel, and this is what pisses me off, Biden administration awarded Intel $7.9 billion in federal subsidies. to support new or expanded factories in Oregon, Arizona, New Mexico, and Ohio. Intel received $1 billion of that money from the Federal CHIPS Act last year, but much of the rest appears to be in limbo while the Trump administration reevaluates the awards. Intel has delayed the opening of its Ohio factory until 2030, a tacit acknowledgement that there isn't enough demand for its chips, because nobody wants those pieces of crap anymore, to justify the $10 billion investment to equip the facility. Think about this. Huawei, China, is building out manufacturing districts in order to push out AI chips. Intel can't finish one $10 billion factory. Oregon also awarded Intel $115 million in state funds. The timing of a planned expansion of its D1X research factory in Hillsboro is unclear, and the state funds are subject to clawback if the expansion doesn't hit hiring targets or boost state tax revenue. So, yeah, Intel seems to be continuing to swirl around the drain. The curious thing to be thinking about with this, because you might say, well, Eli, it's the modern world. As you say, we're in an economic kerfuffle. Is it a recession? Is it not a recession? Who the hell knows? It's just an economic stupidity. So Intel is having to lay off people. This is normal. This is just how it goes. My concern with Intel is the question that I would pose to you is, what are you excited about from Intel? Right? I remember back in the days being excited about Xeon processors. Ooh, I remember being excited about Atom processors. I supported Atom processors. I mean, they were fine, whatever, right? Over the years, I've been excited. Edison, their system on a chip from way back then. There's a lot of things that Intel has done over the years that we're interested to get excited about. Wow, what are you excited about, right? And the curious thing to be thinking about in 2025 is take all this out of the equation and simply look at Intel and look at the technology landscape and ask yourself, what are you excited about Intel for? What is Intel doing somewhere where you're like, wow, that is cool, that is going to be a game changer? And I have to say, when I look at it, they seem like a very has-been company. They seem like a legacy has-been company. Their CPUs are still being used because everybody's been using them for many, many, many decades at this point, right? The architecture is known, the operating systems and the software and everything has already been developed for it, and so it's easier to maintain using legacy systems than going over to some newfangled stuff, right? But if you look at it, everything from CPUs to GPUs to what else are they actually doing, there's nothing here to be that excited about. And so when you see them do 15,000 layoffs, and now they're going to do 15 to 20%, maybe another 10,000 layoffs, you see nothing exciting on the horizon. I do wonder what will happen to Intel. Years ago, right? When AOL was AOL, if you had told me that AOL would die, that would have seemed like a joke. When Yahoo was Yahoo, remember when Yahoo was the Yahoo of Yahoos? And then it basically got sold, for tax write-off. BlackBerry, right? BlackBerry owned the smartphone market. And they're basically dead. Xerox still around, Kodak. So many of these companies, it's easy to look at the companies that we have now, the Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world, even the Intels of the world, and say, of course they are going to continue because they've been here. The idea that they are going to continue to be successful because somehow they've been successful in the past. And the interesting thing is when you look back at generations of technology and technology companies, there were many of these companies that seemed like they would last forever. until they died. Like, you don't think about it now, but like with social media, right? Facebook took over, so Facebook really owns social media. But if you go back to the late 90s and the early 2000s, AOL, there was something called AOL Instant Message. AIM was a complete and utter disaster. So many hours of repair work I had to deal with AIM. Because anyway, basically with AOL, what they decided to do at one point to make things easier for users is when you installed AOL, it would literally disable every other network connection other than your modem. Which, I don't know, in a home environment, maybe that made half a bit of sense. But the thing was, you had all these secretaries at work, and they wanted to be able to use AIM while they're getting paid by the company. So they would install, because we had Windows 95. Windows 95 had no security. So they would install AOL onto their Windows 95 machine, and the very first thing AOL would do would be to cut off, to disable the network card. True story. Anyways, but that was the thing. Like, AIM... So many people, AIM was their life. AOL Instant Message was how everything happened. I remember back in the days when people met their spouses on AOL, that type of deal. And so when you think about how popular social media has become, it's mind-blowing to go back and look at the popularity of AIM, like the disastrous popularity of AIM. It already had traction, it already had users, it already had all of this stuff, and yet for some reason it just died a horrible death, and Facebook took everything over. Right? AIM should have simply been expanded upon to create a larger social media platform, and everybody should be using AIM at this point. But that's not what happened. For whatever reason, that's not what happened. And so that's the curious thing, to be looking at Intel right now and all the problems that Intel is having, and really ask, what is its viability going into the future? And the bigger issue we're having in the technology world is that our politicians fundamentally do not understand the game that they're playing in the tech environment, right? So the idea is we're supposed to be shutting down China. We're supposed to be blocking China. We're supposed to be punishing the ever-loving shit out of China in order for us to, quote unquote, maintain superiority and become more advanced. But at the exact same time, our companies are failing, and we're not producing the resources required to have a highly successful industry in this country. And that's what makes me so frustrated. When you hear me and I get so snarky about this China man bad thing and, Taco Trump and all this, as far as the AI diffusion rules and these attacks against China, this is what makes me so abjectly frustrated, right? Don't be a racist. Don't be a racist. But for the love of God, if you're gonna be a racist, be fucking effective at it, right? At this point, I'm at a loss as to what the hell we're doing. We're quote unquote punishing China, which, to be clear, I don't think it's punishing them in the way we think it is. And at the same time, our tech industry is fucking going belly up. Anyways, that's my frustrations with the modern world. So what do you think about this? What do you think about Intel laying off 15 to 20% of its factory workers? Not the HR folks, not the PR, not the marketing, the factory workers. What do you think about this? After they've gotten billions of dollars from the Biden administration, what do you think about this? As Trump and the Biden administration has tried to attack China's tech industry, what do you think about this? We're literally, Intel, right, the crown, one of the crown jewels of our tech sector here in the United States, while it is literally imploding, China is producing, Huawei's entire manufacturing districts. How do you feel about any of this? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. And with that, see y'all later.